Today, we're talking about why making yourself the problem actually makes you the solution. Welcome back to Relearn Relationships. Having agency to change and taking personal responsibility for your life is the key to growth. It's the key to getting what you want. It's the solution you're looking for. And it's really easy to blame other people and make other people the problem in our lives. I had one particular relationship where I was doing this. I was convinced I was with someone who was emotionally unavailable because I didn't feel like he could get my depth, that I needed to talk things through or something was bothering me and I wanted him to be there for me in a certain way. And to me, before I did some introspection and really looked at myself, it just felt like he was closed off. He was avoidant. Maybe you've been there. You've used a term like avoidant or narcissist to label someone you've been in a relationship with. And if you have, please listen up. Because in my mind, he was avoidant and he didn't have the emotional capacity to really hold me. But the problem is I was just looking out. I was looking at someone else's behavior and I was making judgments on their behavior. Now, it can be good to be discerning, right? To look at the evidence, the patterns of the people around you and learn them. But first, you've got to look at yourself and the role that you're playing in whatever your problem is. For me, this idea that I was with this man who is emotionally unavailable, I was actually the problem. Because when I finally took a second to look at myself, I realized that I was only available for shallow relationships at that point. I was so afraid of getting hurt again. I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid of being lied to, all of these things that I was keeping this wonderful man at arm's length. The problem wasn't him. The problem was me. He could have been the most emotionally available person on the planet, but I was not open to that. I was not available to be held by that because there were things going on with me that were pushing people away. Now, I could have left that relationship and walked away holding on to my belief that this man was avoidant, he was emotionally unavailable, he just didn't get it. And then I would have walked into the next relationship with that baggage, with that belief, and likely repeated the pattern of finding a partner that was, quote, emotionally unavailable. Because if the problem is always outside of you, if it's always the other person, if it's always the women that you date, if it's always the guys you're in relationships with, if it's always them and it's never you, then you have no agency. You have no control. You can't change anything. And I am a firm believer that we attract what we're available for, right? If you wake up in the morning and you say, this day is going to suck, the next thing that happens will probably suck. And the thing after that will also probably suck. And you'll continue to find these things to be frustrated about because that is what you told your brain to look for. That is the outcome that you are available for. And the same is true when we're dating and we're getting into relationships. If we keep carrying baggage from one relationship to the next, we will repeat the pattern. And so if I had left that relationship with this belief that he was the problem, he was emotionally unavailable, he was avoidant, I would have found that likely in the next person because my belief was that he was the problem. So maybe the next person I wouldn't have thought was emotionally unavailable, but the problem would have been with them because I would be repeating this pattern that was deeply seated in my fear of rejection. I was afraid to be vulnerable. I was afraid to be open in a relationship because I didn't want to get hurt. So I would have continued to have these behaviors that kept people at arm's length because I'm afraid that I'll get hurt if I let them in. By having that awareness, by making myself the problem, I got to be the solution because I can work with me. This canvas I can paint on. I have agency. I can make change over my life. I don't have any control over whether or not another person is emotionally available. I have no control whether or not another person is going to be vulnerable with me. Now, I can affect the atmosphere of the relationship by being someone who is open and kind and receptive. But at the end of the day, it's up to another person whether or not they take that, right? Like whether or not they enter into that relationship and they share. What I did have control over was my fear of rejection, my fear of vulnerability. I could work on those things. And I did. I got support to work through the parts of me that were afraid of letting people in. And what I see happen a lot that makes me really sad is I see people living relationships in this victim mentality, blaming all of their exes. You know, they were all crazy. They all were the problem. They didn't get me. They were this, narcissistic, avoidant. Again, throwing out all the terms. And then they get this defeatist mindset that it's always going to suck. I'm always going to get hurt. No one is ever going to love me the way I want to be loved. And they're shrinking their realm of possibility down so small that a great person could walk through the door and they wouldn't see them. They would not be in a place where they could receive that relationship because they don't even believe it's possible. They're living in a defeatist mindset. Agency comes when you take personal responsibility for your life. Now, a quick caveat on this. Things that happened to you when you were younger that you had no say over, you had no agency over, maybe you were abused, you were mistreated, whatever it was, that is not your fault. That is not your fault. But it is your responsibility to heal it if you want to be able to have love and connection with other people. So it's not your fault what happened to you when you were a little kid. You didn't have any control then. You didn't have agency. But it is your decision on whether or not you get through it, whether or not you choose growth, whether or not you seek out support to help you deal with those traumas and hurts and renegotiate those experiences so that you can find love and connection in your life. I can link a lot of my tendencies to things that happened to me when I was a kid. I can see the reason, the pattern of protection that was formed. But if I live the rest of my life blaming some of these behaviors and how I react to things on my childhood, I will never grow. And I know it will keep me from the love I desire. Just like if I am emotionally unavailable in a relationship because I was once in a relationship with someone who was very hurtful and ended very badly, if I do that and I carry that wound with me, it will infect every relationship I try to have after that. So when I was in this place where I was with someone and I realized, oh, I am the problem and I get to be the solution, I started to deal with my old stuff. And if you've been around, you've probably heard me use this analogy, but I just love it because I love to go hiking. And being in a relationship, it's like putting on an empty backpack and you're starting up a hike. You want to summit a mountain to love. And along the way, you trip over a rock. And what most of us do is we put the rock in our backpack and then we keep going. And then we find another rock we trip over and we put that in our backpack. And those rocks signify the hurts that happen to us as we're in relationships with other people. And really, what we have to do is we have to take a second and sit down and pull out each of those rocks and say, okay, what can I learn from this? What do I have control over in this situation? What solution can I bring to this past thing? Is this something I need to let go of that I'm just holding on to for no reason? Is it something I need to forgive? Or is it something I need to explore deeper? Maybe it is a deep-rooted trauma and you need support getting through that. Maybe it's something you need to apologize for and it's guilt that you're carrying into relationship after relationship. But whatever it is for you, you have the agency to sit down and deal with all those rocks inside of your backpack. Because getting the love that you really desire and the connection with another person that you desire, it requires you to put down all the shields that you're holding up to protect yourself. And I get it. I want to protect myself. I still have moments where I get really scared about, well, what will happen if my partner rejects me, or what if he was to cheat on me, or what if everything falls apart and I have to start over? Those thoughts still come to my mind. But I've gotten so much better at taking a hold of those thoughts and saying, okay, what do I have control over? Where is this fear of rejection coming from? What is that linked to for me? What can I do instead to choose a new thought or to be with this emotion and let it flow through me instead of fighting it all the time and just say, oh, I'm going to recognize that fear is coming up in me right now. I'm going to feel the fear, but I'm not going to let it control my behavior. As soon as you stop putting the blame on other people and you look at yourself, you take responsibility for where your life is right now, because out of all of your hurts, all of your bad relationships, you are the common denominator. So look at yourself and say, if I'm the problem in this scenario, then I get to be the solution. And you get to paint on that canvas. And you get to choose what happens next. And you can seek out support to help you get to where you want to go so you can be open and available for love. But sometimes I think we can get so attached to our trauma. We can get so attached to the identity that we've built around our hurts that letting go of them and actively working to heal them feels like we're splitting ourselves a little bit, because we have to put down the pain that's become such an ingrained part of our identity. But there are so many more beautiful things on the other side of that. Like being open to love and connection. And I think I referenced it in the last podcast that the Old Dominion song, You've Got to Love Like There's No Such Thing as a Broken Heart. Like, I believe that. Because if you really want the deep stuff, if you really want the intimacy, if you really want the good stuff with someone, you want to get stuck in with them in the best way, and you want to make it through the highs and lows of life with another person long term, then you can't bring your past pain into that relationship and expect the relationship to thrive. Don't bleed on the person who didn't cut you. And all of that starts with taking ownership of your life, looking at the situation and asking yourself, where am I the problem in this? And then you get to be the solution, that agency of change, and you get to build the life and the relationships that you really want. I hope this was helpful. If you want to go deeper, make sure you're subscribed to relearnrelationships.com. That's through Substack. That's where this podcast comes out of. The blog will come out of that will go with this. And it's also where I will announce any group programs, one-on-one offerings, speaking engagements, or courses, free masterclasses, all of the good stuff. So please connect with me there. And until next time, I hope you choose growth.